Okay, so are you ready for today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's in the early morning, so I think all of you have a fresh mind to start. So today we learn about this numerical descriptive measure. So actually it's quite simple, it's very simple, and this is super basic of the statistic. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so this is the today agenda. So in this class for today, you will learn about the central tendency, variation, and shape. And also you will learn to calculate descriptive summary, measure of a population, and also to construct this box plot. So this is box plot is very strong tools to do the statistical analysis, to know the characteristic of the population, to know the characteristic of the data that you have. Next is to calculate the covariance or coefficient correlation. This is actually a very interesting topic that we have in this coefficient of correlation, because you will know about the correlation of the variables. Okay, so let's continue to this numerical descriptive measures. So this is divided into three types. The first is the central tendency, variation, and the shape. Okay. So before I explain all of this one, let's continue. First is central tendency. So central tendency is divided into three. The first is the mean, arithmetic mean. So the mean is only the average. The average. Mean is the average. And you have the median. So the median is the middle number. It's only the middle number. Middle number. You have several sort of data, and the middle number is the median. But of course, you need to sort all of the data that you have. Sort by rank. After you sort by rank from smallest to the largest, then you will have the median is the middle number of the data that you have. The next is the mode. The mode is the most frequent number. You can see in this cartoon. So I'm the most popular. I was chosen the most because yes, the mode is the most frequent number. And we have the median. Yes, is the middle number. And the mean. The mean is the average. Okay. So let's continue with this the mean. So first, I don't want you to confuse about this creature, because yeah, it's I also hate when I see this one back then. But this is the formula for the mean. You have this x bar first. So x bar is the mean, the symbol of the mean. The symbol of the mean is this bar. So you have this x variable. So x variable combined with this bar means the mean of this x variable. And also you have the sigma. Don't be confused. Sigma is only the sum of this x. And you have this n is the sample size. The sample size that you have. Okay, so I start from one sample into the n sample. You don't know how big the sample is, so you write this n here. So x is the value of the data that you have. So if you see, this is only the average. So you just sum all of the data that you have, divided by the sample size that you have. So it's only the average. Sum all of this xi, sum all of this, divided by the n. Super simple, and it's very easy. Okay, so let's continue. As usual, if you have any question, then you can turn on your microphone and just ask directly. Okay. Okay, so this is the mean. So as you know that the mean is the average, sum of value divided by the number of value. And you can see in this diagram, this picture here, we have the data from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the number of value that we have. So how to calculate the mean is is very simple. You just sum all of this one. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 divided by the data that you have, the number of data that you have. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 sample. So divided by 5, you have 3. Simple. Okay. In the right side, you can see you have 5 data, also the same. You have 5 data but different number. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have 10. So just sum of this one. You can see divided by the sample that you have, then you have 4. So the average number is 4. Okay. So this is super simple. Okay. Okay, so we can continue. The next is the median. So you know that median is only the middle number, but you need to make sure your data in an order array. So you need to rank the data from the smallest to the largest. Then you can calculate the median. So the median is only the middle number of the data that you have. And also, this is not affected by extreme value. So if you see on the left and the right, so you can see you have the median is the same, but because today in this case we have the outliers, but the median is still the same. It's the middle number, even though you have the outlier here. So if you compare to this mean, the average, so this mean is affected by the extreme value. So if you have extreme value, it will change the mean. Okay, if you have extreme value, it will change the mean. So the mean is very affected by the outliers. Okay, but the median is not, because it is only the middle number. So that's why if you have the data, you also need not only calculate the average, but you also have to calculate the median to know about the characteristic of the data. So let's say if you have this median 3, you have median 3, okay, but the average also 3. It means that so you don't have the outliers. But if your medians is different, let's say your median could be let's say 5 maybe, or above the 5, then it could be an outlier. So we'll learn after this one to identify the outliers. Okay, this is the formula for the median. It's super simple. The median position is n is the sample that you have, plus 1 divided by 2. So for this example, you have n is 5 data, right? So n plus 1 is 6 divided by 2. So you have 3. So the middle number is the 3. Not 3 by value, but rank number 3. You can see in this one. N plus 1 divided by 2 is not the value of the median, only the position. The position of the median in the rank data. So if you already rank the data that you have, so the median is 3. So you can see the rank. This is rank number 1, this is rank number 2, this is rank number 3. So your median is in the rank number 3. You can see the value is 3. This is just the coincidence that the value is the same, but please make sure that it is not the value, but it is the position. The median is the position. Okay, any question? It's clear, right? Very easy. Okay, so we can continue. The next is mode. Mode is the value that occurs most often. Also, this is not affected by extreme value, because normally the extreme value is only a few, not many. Okay, so you can see in this screen we have the mode. The mode is the most frequent number. As you can see that for number 1, for the value of 1, you only have 1 data, 3 1 data, 5 value you have 2 data, 2 frequency, and for this number 9 you have 3 frequency. So this is the most frequent number, or the most frequent value that occurs. So the mode is 9. How about this one? How about in the right side? We have no frequent number. So we don't have mode here. So no mode if all of the value have the same frequency. So they have no mode. Okay? Simple? Easy? Easy, right?
Still easy, sir.
Yes, very easy. The next is also the same, easy. It's easy, don't worry. Okay, let's continue. This is the example. How about the mean? Can you calculate? Yeah, you can turn on your calculator, calculate the mean. Yes, the mean.
$600,000.
Yes, correct. Super simple, super easy. How about the median?
300,000.
300, you can see exactly. Next is the mode.
100,000.
100.
Yes, yes, correct. Very good. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so mean is generally used. So if you have any data, you always calculate the mean, unless extreme value or the outliers exist. The median is often used. If you calculate the data, you also calculate not only the mean but also the median, because the median is not sensitive to the extreme value. Okay, as you can see in the data that we have back then. Okay. In some situation, it makes sense to report both of the mean and the median. Yes, this is very often that we do. We also need to know about the both of the mean and the median. Okay, so let's continue. So this is the resume, the summary for the central tendency. Okay, this is also the summary. You can see we have all the people here, 5 people. You can see the mean. The mode is the most frequent number. The median is the middle. Okay, so let's continue. The next is this one, measure of variation. Okay, in this variation, it will give you the information about the spread of the data variability, and also this dispersion of the data value. So you can see the variation. We have several types here of the variation. First is range, second variance, standard deviation, and next one is this one, coefficient of variation. Okay, as you can see in the graphic below, that you can see that we have the same center, but we have a different variation, different data, different shape of the data that we have. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. The range is from the largest to smallest, the range. Yes, as you can see in the words, it's range. So range is the difference between the largest and the smallest value. So you can see the formula here. We have range is the largest minus the smallest one. So it's quite simple. This is your range. It's easy, right? Smallest or the largest minus the smallest. You have the range. Why we need to calculate this range? Because we also need to calculate the data characteristic that we have. So if you have the outliers, so the range will be huge. If the range is huge, means that you will have a dispersed data. Okay. Okay, so this is the range. Why the range can be misleading? Okay. So the range ignores the way in which data are distributed. So as you can see, this is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data that we have. The range is 5. But in this case, we also have 6, but the data is distributed differently. But the range is also the same. You cannot. We have an outlier here. 7 is outliers, right? But the range is the same. So it ignores the way the data are distributed, and also it is sensitive to outliers. So you can see you have the data of this data here, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. The range is 4. But if you have outliers, extreme outliers, you can see this 120 is an extreme outliers. This is the data that we have, the core data that we have, and you have this 120. So it will affecting your range. So you will be confused why your range is high. It is because maybe you have an outliers. Maybe when some people collecting your data or collecting your sample, they have an error in data. So we have 120. So it could be data error, maybe it could be 1 and 2 and 0, could be. But they write 120. So this is outlier, will be affecting your data. And also your range will be high because of these outliers. Okay? It's easy. Let's continue. The next is this one, the variance. Okay, so this variance is only a square deviation of value from the mean. Average, square deviation of value from the mean. Okay, you can see we have this symbol, this S. So square of the S is the variance. So it's only a square deviation value from the mean. So it means that how far are you from the mean? Okay, so let's continue first. So we have this sigma. Sigma is the sum, all of this one. So if you have so many data, yes, you calculate this one. You have the X data, right? Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, and maybe this data that you have. And you also need to calculate the mean. This is the mean, and divide it by the sample that you have, minus 1. You have the square here. So you see, you have this X minus X bar. So X minus X bar is about the range. How far are you from the mean? How far are you from the mean? Okay, this is the variance. The next is this one, the standard deviation. Mostly we use this standard deviation. Okay, mostly we use the standard deviation. This is so the variation about the mean. Yes, the variation about the mean. So this is also shows you the average data that you have. How far the average data from the mean. Okay, this is the square root of the variance. Yes, this is the same formula here with the variance. But to know this standard deviation, we square root of this variance. You know, this we have this S squared. So we just square root this one. Square root, then we get this S. Where this one is X bar is the mean, arithmetic mean, and is the sample that you have, and X is the value of the variable X. Okay. How is it? How is it?
It's still understandable, sir.
You still?
Still good.
Yes, good.
Still good. Yes, very good. So let's continue. This is the step how to compute the standard deviation. So you need to compute a difference between each value and the mean. Square is difference. Add the square difference. Divided this by the n minus 1 of your sample, and take the square root for the sample. So let's start with the example. Imagine that you have the sample data. You have the sample data. So you have the n is 8, right? You have 8 data here, and you have the mean. The mean is 16. So actually the standard deviation is only the average of how far of each data from the mean. So you can see the mean is 16. How far is this 15? 1. How far is this 14 from the mean? 2. How far is this 12 from the mean? 4. How far is this 10 from the mean? It's 6. And also you calculate how far of each of these variable, and you go for the average of all of this one. Actually, that's the simple understanding about this standard deviation. So you can see, we will start to calculate. So we have this formula here. This is the formula of standard deviation. Square root of 10, we have 10 divided by the mean. Square it plus 12 minus the mean that we have, square it, and so on. So we will have this one. Okay. Okay, you can calculate this one. So don't forget to make sure this the sample minus 1. Okay. Then we have this number. So this is the average number. How far are you from the mean? Simple? Any question?
No, sir.
No? Okay. So anyone? So this is quite simple, right? This is only how far are you from the mean? Okay. Okay, so if you didn't have any question, then we can continue. So this is only a measure of the average scattered around the mean. Okay, simple, right? Okay, so this is another example. So we will compare the standard deviation. So you can see we have data A, data B, and data C. From this data A, we have this data. So we have 11, 12, 13. So we have 16. We have two data here with the value of 16. And the next data we have the value of 1. So the mean is 15.5 around here. And the standard deviation is 3.3. So you know that this is the data we have, this quite scattered. And the next one you can see in this data B, this data is quite compact. So we have this 14 with 1 frequency, 15 with 3 frequency, 16 3 frequency also, and 17. So the data is quite compact here. So if you calculate the mean is the same, 15.5 around here, and also this not quite scattered, it's quite compact. So that's why the standard deviation is quite small compared to the other. So if you see this data C, it's more spreaded, it's spreading a lot. The mean is in the middle here, the mean, but the data is not in the middle. It's very scattered data. So you can see the standard deviation is quite high, 4.5. So this standard deviation will make you to have a clear understanding about the distribution of the data. How far is the data from the mean? Okay. Okay, so if you don't have any question, so let's continue. This is also the example of two different graphics. So this is for the smallest standard deviation. So you have the mean here, we have the mean. So the average of the data is not quite scattered, it's quite compact here. So we have the smaller standard deviation. Okay. So this is the value that you have, and this vertical axis is the frequency that you have. Normally we have the mean around here. So in this one, this line also the same mean, but a different standard deviation because the data quite scattered here. So the data quite scattered. Okay. So this is our summary. So the more the data spread out, the greater the range, variance, and standard deviation. Okay. The more the data are concentrated, the smaller the range, variance, and standard deviation. If the value are the same, so all these measures will be 0. There are no variance. It's all the values are the same. So if the value is 16, we have 10 frequency. All of this 10 frequency, we have 16 number. So the mean also will be 16. So there are no range. No range. All these measures will be 0. Okay. So none of these measures are ever negative. So we won't find this standard deviation is negative. No. Okay. So do you have any question before we continue? Or if you need to take a break, or so you say it's too much, you need to take a break, you can take a break. Otherwise, you can continue. So we can continue?
Yes, continue, sir.
Okay. Yes, let's continue. It's still quite easy. The next is this one, this coefficient of variation. Okay. Oh no, you see another formula. No, don't say that. It is actually super simple. It's only the measure of the relative variation. So you have the standard deviation here. So if you see this standard deviation, it's quite big, it's quite low, quite big. So how big is this standard deviation? How big? You don't have the measurement of the standard. How big is the standard deviation? So that's why we will use this coefficient of variation to know how big is the standard deviation compared to the mean that we have. Okay, can you see? So the variation relative to the mean. As you know that this standard deviation is the range, the average. The average, how far are you from the mean? Okay. Also, this is multiplied by 100% because this is always into percentage. Okay. It's simple. You have the standard deviation divided by the mean, multiplied by 100%. Then you get this coefficient of variation. So this is one of the example. In this case, we have the same standard deviation, but it is actually the same. Actually not. For example, we have the stock A and stock B. So the average price last year is $50, and we have the standard deviation of 5. So the price is quite moving. So the price moving could be in the past last year, the price could be changed from 50 to 51, 52, 53, 55, and so on. Okay, so we have the standard deviation of 5. So to calculate this one is quite simple. Okay, so you just you have this standard deviation of 5 divided by the average price last year. You have 50. Multiply by this 100%, so you'll have 10%. Okay, so you can see the difference in this stock B. The average price is quite different, is 100. Standard deviation is 5, and you have this coefficient of variation of 5%. Okay, so you can see what is the data tells about. So we can tell that the both stock have the same standard deviation, but stock B is less variable relative compared to this stock A. So the stock B is only moved around 5% compared to its price. However, the stock A is moving around 10%. It's quite high, even though they have the same standard deviation. But how they move is different. Okay? Do you have any question?
Which is better, sir?
Which one is better? Of course, the lower coefficient of variation. Right? The lower is better.
Okay.
Because if you have high standard deviation, of course, high coefficient of variation, then your data will be spreading a lot. The more the data is spreading, the more difficult for you to understand about the data. Okay? Do you have any other question?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So let's continue. The next is this extreme outliers. So we have outlier, we call it, this one is extreme. So this is an extreme outlier. We call it z-score. So to compute this z-score of the data value, you can first subtract the mean and divide this by the standard deviation. Okay, so this z-score is the number of standard deviation data value from the mean. So this one is considered an extreme outlier if the z-score is less than -3 or greater than +3. Okay. So this the larger absolute value of the z-score, the farther data value is from the mean. Okay. As you can see, yeah, this is the comic. That they are a girl. So he said that, can my boyfriend, he want to come along with it, yeah, his boyfriend, but the male said that I'm not your boyfriend, because he actually dating a number of people, but she kept insist that she is her boyfriend, her girlfriend, because she have the data, because she said that but he spent twice as much time with me as with anyone else, so she is actually an outlier. Okay, so let's continue. This is the formula where this x is represent the data value that they have, and you have the range here, not the range from the mean, sample of the mean, and you have this the standard deviation. So you just calculate this one, then you will get the number. So if the number more than negative or +3, then it is considered an outlier. So we'll have a case here. So the z-score is the mean of the z-score of all of these students is 490 with standard deviation of 100. So if we have the data of this 620, is it considered as extreme outliers or not? So it's quite simple. We already have the standard deviation, we have the data that we have, and also we have the mean. So we can calculate. So we have the data that we have is 620. We also have the mean 490. So we just calculate this one, 620 minus this 490 divided by 100 divided by the standard deviation, and we have this number 1.3. So the data value is considered extreme outlier if the z is less than -3 or greater than +3. So this one is not the outliers. Okay, this is how we calculate the outliers. So it's simple and it's easy. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Do you have any question before we continue?
So I just want to make sure the z-score or the outlier, the number of the z is the indicator that the data is outlier or not, like that?
Yes, the data.
Oh,
Not the whole data. Okay. So let's say you have several z-score. Let's say this one, let's say 300. For several students, you have 300, 350, 390, 400, and but the one person they have a score of 620. You wanna know this? It is an extreme outlier or not? Or let's say you have the data from 1 to 10, but you have the 100. You will think that this is not possible. That this data is not possible. So you will also need to have a proof. To prove of this data is considered an outlier. So you can then continue to calculate the z-score for the data. Let's say you have data for range from 1 to 10, but this one you have 100. So you can calculate the z-score for the 100. compared to the data. So maybe you will get the score greater than 3, then this data considered an outliers. So if you have the data that considered as an outliers, then you will have maybe if you take out the data, then you have the proof why you take out the data. Or maybe if you want to change the data, or you want to retake the data, so there will be a question why you need to retake the data. So your defense is because this is an outliers, so we need to retake the data, because if we continue to calculate with these outliers, so it will be affecting our calculation. Because somehow from the data, then you need to predict for the future, not for the future, but for another data. I will explain to you later on. So in case you need to predict the value, the next value, what will be the next value if we change this variable? Then if you have the outliers, so it will be affecting the formula of the prediction that you might have. So that's why we need to compute for this z-score to make sure that this is an outliers. Then we can do a thing for this outlier that we have. Okay, so that's my answer.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you're welcome. Any other question before we continue? Okay, so if you don't have any question, are you still there? Are you still awake? Okay, so let's continue. Actually, this is quite simple. Next is the shape. You can see this is the shape of the value. Okay, so the shape of the value describe how the data are distributed. Okay, so also the measure of the shape, it could be a left skewed from this high in the right going low to the left. We call it a left skew. Okay, left skew. So left skew indicate if the median is higher than the mean. So from this data we have the mean around here, but the median is higher than the mean. Okay, higher in terms of value. We have this value. For the frequency, of course, this one always higher. Okay, and symmetric, you can see this one symmetric, a bell shape, perfect bell shape, if the mean is the same with the median. So as you can see, we have the mean number here, and also the median number is here. So we call it symmetric. Okay, next one is right skew. Okay, so we have high frequency on the left, getting lower to the right, so we call it right skew. So you have the median here is lower compared to the mean. So we have the mean here, and we have this median here. So this median value is lower than the mean. So it's the median value is lower than the mean, then we call it right skew. The bell shape will be like this. It's not a perfect bell shape. Okay, so this is only the shape of a data distribution. So based on the shape, you will know the characteristic of our data distribution that we have. Okay, the next is for population. Okay, back then we talk about sample. We talk about sample. From the sample, we calculate, we call it the statistic. Okay, but for this case, we will have the measure for the population. Okay, so the summary measure describing a population called parameters. Okay, so this is actually the same. The formula, everything is the same, but the data is for population. So the symbol of all of this mean and the standard deviation is different. Only the symbol are different for population, and for the sample is different. The formula is the same, but quite different for the sample and population, because you can see after the slide. Okay, so I think let's continue. Okay, so we have three measures here: mean, variance, and standard deviation, and we have this population parameter and the sample statistic. So this is actually the same. It's the mean, the average, the mean, but the symbol is different. In the sample statistic, we have this x bar, but for this population parameter, we have this mu, and also we have a different symbol, but we call it the same. We call it the mean of the population, call it the variance of the population, we call it the variance of the statistic. It's still the variance, it's still the mean, it's still the standard deviation, it's still the same, but the symbol is different. Why you need to create this different symbol? Because yes, to make sure that this is different. This is the calculation for the population, and this is the calculation for the sample. You need to divide to make things different. So the statistician try to use a different symbol from this parameter and for the statistic. Okay. So this is only symbol. So let's continue. No major. And also for the mean is the same, only the average. The total number, sum of the total number divided by the population that you have. Back then, we divided by the sample that we have. For this case, divided by the population. Same. Okay. And do we have this n capital here? This is the population side. Back then, we have the n, the normal n, the sample size. And also for this population variance, the same. But what is the difference between this one? Maybe we'll note the difference about this number. Can you spot the difference between the formula of this population variance compared to the sample variance?
Yang di bawah, not n-1.
Yes, it is not n-1. Correct. If you have the population, you divide it by the whole total population. But if for the sample, you the sample size, you minus it with what? That's the difference. Why it's different? Because the formula start with this population. The formula start with this population. Because you have n here, the total population. Okay? And you will get, so I will try to draw something. And you will get this bell shape of the data that have this one, right? For this n. And then you try to calculate for the sample. So you try to calculate for the sample without this n. So because let's say in this population you have 10,000 data, quite many, 10,000 or maybe a million of data, but for the sample you only take around 50 data. So if we still have this n instead of n-1 for the sample, then the data will not be like this. It will be like this one. They will create a smaller standard deviation. They will have the smaller standard deviation. This will be affecting your calculation, because basically the population the same, but the formula give you a different result by using the same n, because in this population it describes the actual value, the actual condition. Population always give you the actual condition because this is the population. But if you take the sample, then the shape will be different. Okay, the statistician, all of the expert in statistics, the people the expert in statistics, they want to have they want to their sample, they want their sample to quite match with this population. So they want the sample to actually describe correctly about this population. So that's why the expert decide to make this sample by using this -1. So by creating this -1, the sample will be quite few. This will be affecting the number of these variants that we have. So the shape will be quite similar with this population. It's not like this. It will be quite similar like this one. So that's why the expert tend to use this -1 for the sample, because mostly the sample will be not more than, let's say for the data that we have, difficult data, maybe the data could be around 300 or maybe around 100 into the 100 to 300, maybe 500. It's quite small compared to the population. Population could be 1,000, could be 1,000,000, could be 10 million. So the expert wants to make sure that this sample describe quite similar with the actual population, with the actual condition. So that's why we use this n-1 for the sample. Okay, so that's the explanation for why we use n-1 for this formula for the standard deviation. Okay. So any question? No?
No, sir. It was clear.
Okay, so clear. Good. Then we can continue. And also for this standard deviation, also the same. Same formula. The difference is just this n only. You see, we are using n here. Okay, so we'll continue. Okay, the next is we have this empirical rule. So this is the rule for the standard deviation. So if you have 1 times or plus minus 1 times of the standard deviation, this is not one standard deviation, but 1 multiple by the standard deviation. So 1 times of the standard deviation. So mu is your average number. So your mean, the mean plus minus 1 times of the standard deviation, it consists 68% of the data that you have. Okay, so let's continue. Well, if you have bell-shaped distribution, so this is the empirical. Okay, so let's continue. So if you have twice times of the standard deviation, then it could be consist of 90% of the data that you have. And if you have 3 times of the standard deviation, plus minus 3 times mu, plus minus 3 times of the standard deviation, it will be consist of 99.7% of all of the data that you have. This is the empirical rule. So maybe you're still confused. What is it? So let's continue with the example. This is the example. So suppose this variable is bell-shaped. It must bell-shaped for you to use this empirical rule. You have the mean of 500. So the mean of the scores is 500, and you have the standard deviation around 90. So the average distance, how far are the data from the mean, is 90. So it could be higher than 90, it could be lower than 90, right? Okay. So let's use this empirical rule. So they said that if the average or the mean, if the mean plus minus 1 times of the standard deviation consists of this 68% of all the data that we have. So we can calculate. So 500 minus 90, we have 410, and 500 plus 90, we have 590. So this range between the score between 410 and 590, it is considered as 68% of all the test takers. Okay. The next is if we have twice of the standard deviation, plus minus twice of the standard deviation. We have this 180 plus minus this 500. So the range between this 320 and 680. So this all of this one is consists of 95% of the test takers. This is the range of 95% of the data that we have. This is the empirical rules. And so on if we have 3 times of the standard deviation. Okay, so this is how we use this empirical rule. Okay, so if you don't have any question, you can continue. Besides this empirical rule that we have also this Chebyshev rule. So if you have this k value, standard of the mean, this is a real fall between this k standard deviation. Okay, so normally we will use this empirical rule. This is very common if we use this one. For this Chebyshev rule is also quite common, but normally we use that empirical rule. Okay, so in this case they said that 75% of the data, if you have the mu of 2 times of the standard deviation, and we have the 89% of the data if we have this mu plus minus the 3 times of the standard deviation. Quite different. Okay, the next is this one, the quartile measure. Do you want to take a break or we just continue?
Continue, sir. Just continue.
Okay, very good. I think you already understand the statistic. So the next is this quartile measure. So quartile measure is you split the ranked data into 4 segments. So the ranked data for smallest to the largest, as usual, you rank the data, and you split into the 4 segments with an equal number of value per segment. So equal number of rank. Okay, the first quartile is this first 25%, and Q2, this Q2 is the median. So you might know about the Q1, Q2, and Q3 for the month. Let's say quarter 1 consists of January, February, March, April, and so on, and the Q2 and so on. So this is only we split the rank data into 4 segments, as simple as that. Okay, so for example, how we locate the quartile? So from this data, we only rank the data into 4 segments equally, 25% each. So this is based on the position for data. So this is the formula for Q1, Q2, and Q3. As you know that this is the formula for the median, right? This is the formula for the median, because the second quartile is the median. For the first quartile, it will be this n plus 1 divided by 4. And also for this third quartile position is 3 multiplied by n plus 1 divided by 4. So we'll get this 25 rank value, where n is the number of observed value. Okay. So we have the rules to calculate this measure. The first thing is we need to make sure that it is rank, the position. Okay. So if the result is fractional half, let's say 1.5, 7.5, and so on, then we can average the two corresponding value. Okay, and so if the result is not a whole number of fractional half, then round the result to the nearest integer to find the rank position. Okay, so you can see in this case, let's go to the case. So in this case, we have a sample data in ordered array. So this is the data that you have. You have 11, 12, 13, 16, 16, 17, 18, so on. You have, this is n is 9, so you have 9 data. So this Q1, the Q1 is this 2.5 position of the rank data that we have. So the position of this Q1 would be 1, 2, 2.5 in this middle position. So you need to know about the value between this 12 and this 13. So we just use the value halfway between the second and third value. So you just use this average of 12 and 13. So just calculate 12 plus 13. We got divided by 2. We have this Q1 is this 12.5. Okay. So you can see in here. So you have this median. Median is the middle number, 16, the fifth position. And for the Q3 is the 7.5 position. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So in the middle of this one. So in the middle of this one, so we can calculate by sum of these two numbers divided by 2. So you get this 19.5. It's quite simple, right? Very easy, super simple to calculate the quartile. So you can always see the slide. Next, this one, the interquartile range. So the IQR is this, from Q1 into the Q3, and also this indicate the spread of the 50% of the data. Okay, why we need to know this interquartile range is because normally this IQR is not influenced by the outliers or extreme value. Normally this IQR, that's why we need to know the IQR of the data that we have. Okay, it's also called a resistant measure because they are not influenced by the outliers. Okay, this is the example here. So this is the data that we have. So we have the minimum data here. The minimum number, the minimum value is 12. And we have the Q1 of 30, the median 45, Q3 is 57, and the maximum number is 70. So we can calculate all this minimum, Q1, median, Q3. We have all this data here. So the range of this interquartile is from Q1 to Q3. So just this Q3 value minus the Q1 value, then we got the range. This is the interquartile range. Okay, any question? So you can see this is the bar. You can see the bar here, the bar and the line here. This is what we call the box plot. So the box plot, by doing this, by creating the box plot, you already see this interquartile range, and you already see the possible outliers here. So if the maximum is too far from this interquartile range, then the data that you have might be contain outliers. Or maybe the minimum. If the minimum too far, data could be an outlier, and so on. Okay, so let's continue to this 5-number summary. The 5-number summary is that number that you already have. We call it the 5-number summary. This one will help you to describe the center, split, and the shape of the data, especially the shape of the data, and also to know the outliers. This one, smallest, Q1, Q2, Q3, and the largest. Okay. And also this will indicate the shape, your distribution shape. Left skewed is the median minus the smallest one is larger than the larger minus the median. Okay, you can read this one, but I think it's easier to see the graph or the box plot. Okay, you have the smallest, Q1, median, Q3, and the largest. Then you can create the box plot easily. You have the smallest, you create this one. You have Q1, okay, create this one. The median, you create this one. Q3, you create this one, and you can create box here between the median, between the Q1 to Q3. You can create the box. Then from Q3 to the largest, you can create a line and create this one. It's very simple. You can create the box plot by using the number of all of these: smallest, Q1, median, Q3, and the largest. Okay. Do you have any question? If you don't have any question, then you can continue. Okay, so this is the shape of the box plot. Okay, so the box plot can be shown either in vertical or horizontal orientation. So in this case, I show you the horizontal orientation. So you can also show this box plot in a vertical. Okay, so you can see if the data is symmetric. You can see the median in the middle, and also the Q1 and the Q3 around here. So if you can see this one, this the center in the center line. So you can call it this one is symmetric. So you can see the different here. So for the left skewed, you can see this box plot or the display of the box plot is characterized by this one. This one is the center, and this one is the right. So you can see based on the box plot. So you can see by just looking in the millisecond. If you see this box plot, you already know this one is left skewed, this one is symmetric, and this one is right skewed. Okay, the shape of the box plot. So let's go to the example. In this below number, you can see the following data. You have the 0 value, 2, 2, 3, and so on. You can see you have the possible outliers here. So what would be this outlier affecting your box plot? You have this one smallest, you have this one is the Q1, the 2 number is the Q1, and you have the middle number, the Q3. The middle number is the Q2. Then you have this Q3, and you have this the largest number. You already have this one, right? So you can draw the box plot. So the shape of the box plot will be like this one. 0, you have 2 here, 3 as the median, and you have 5, the Q3, and the next one you have this 27. as the largest number. So this is your IQR. So you can see the largest number is too far from the IQR. Okay? Do you have any question?
Could you please re-explain, sir?
Okay. So we have this number. You want to explain start from this one?
Yes.
Okay. So you have this number from 0 to 27. So based on this number is already ordered, ranked from the smallest to the largest. From this number, we already have the smallest number, right? Okay. Then we also can calculate the Q1, 20% of this one. And we also have the median, this one, the Q2. And we have this Q3. And also we can calculate for this X largest. Okay. So this, based on this data, we already have the 5 number summary. So based on this data, we can create the smallest here. Let's say I will use pen. We have the smallest, we have 0. Let's say we have 5 here. We have 10. We have 15, 20, and so on until 27. Okay, this is the range. So we have this 0 as the smallest number. Okay. Then we have 2 as our Q1, and we have 3 as the middle number, right? And we have 5 as our Q3 here. Okay, and we have 27 as our largest value here, right? From this data, we already have this the interquartile range, IQR. Okay, so this is the most common, around 50% of your data consists in here. True, right? You can create a line here. This is the range between the smallest to the Q1. And this is the range between the Q3 to the largest. This is our box plot. As you can see, this one. Okay, so based on this data, you can see the shape of your box plot, the shape of your data, and you can see there are possible outliers here because most of the data are concentrated here. Okay, so it is clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're
I
welcome.
understand now.
It's very easy, right? Okay. Okay, so next we can continue. This is the example of the box plot showing an outliers. Okay. So the box plot below the same data. So the outlier value of 27, right? This is our outliers. So normally a value is considered an outlier if it is more than 1.5 times of this Q1 or above this Q3. So if the value is 1.5 times more than the Q3, then it considered as an outlier. Or if the range is 1.5 times below the Q1, it's also considered an outlier. Okay, clear? It's very simple. Okay. Next is this one. This one is the covariance. Okay. As you can see, we have this one. Do you remember this one? Do you remember this one? This one is quite similar with standard deviation, right? But in this case, we have also this y. we have this one. We call it covariance x and y. Variable x and variable y. So in this case, we have two variables. So this one is the measure of the strength of the linear relationship between two numerical variables, x and y. So if you have two variables, then you want to know about the relationship between these variables, then we can use this covariance formula. Okay? But the weakness of this covariance is not concerned with the strength of the relationship. So by using this covariance, we only know about if they are positive, there are a correlation. If zero, no correlation. If negative, they have the negative correlation. Okay, so it's not concerned with the strength of the relationship. Maybe you're still confused. So imagine like this one. You have the data of your friends here, the statistical data, the score of all of your friends here about the statistic. And also maybe you have the data for the mathematics of your friends here. So you want to know the correlation of the variable, the mathematics score, and the statistical score. What I want to know is the student who are smart in mathematics will also smart in this statistics? You want to answer the question by see the data. So that's why you need to know the correlation between all of the score of the mathematics and all of the score of the statistic. It is correlated or not? It is the positive relationship or negative, or maybe there is no correlation, or maybe the person who are smart in mathematics, they will getting worse by doing the statistic. But that's not possible, right? So the people who are smart in mathematics will consider also smart in statistics. That's the theory. But maybe the data said that's wrong. Maybe there will be no correlation between statistics and mathematics. The person who are smart in statistics, they could be have the lower grade in the mathematics. That could be, but that's depend on the data. That's why we used to use this covariance to know the relationship between two numerical variables. Okay, so let's continue. So let's continue this one. We have the data here, the value and annual revenue of the 30 NBA teams in millions of dollars. So, you know, in this one, value. So this is the value of the team. And you have the revenue of the team. So we want to know, is the value and revenue are correlated? Do they have the positive relationship? Let's say you own one of this one. Let's say you own this one, Carlet. You want to know, you know that your value is 200 compared to the others is quite low, and your revenue also lower than the others. So you want to know, if I increase my value, let's say by hiring more talented players, so it will increase my value, or by creating a good stadium, it will increase also my revenue. So what's the point? If I increase my value, it will increase the revenue. So if I increase my value, will it increase my revenue? So I want to know. So I need to know the relationship between these two variables, value and revenue. The first is we want to know what would be the covariance number. Okay, I already calculate this one in the Excel. So I will share it to you. This one is a covariance example. So how to calculate is very simple. We already have this formula, right? We already have this formula. Okay. So first thing we have this data, right? This is the data that we have. Okay. The next, we need to calculate this x value minus the mean. X value minus the mean, as we have this one. Okay, x minus the mean. Okay, then we just calculate. We calculate this one. We have this x 306, and we have the mean. So the mean here should be, okay, let's calculate first. So the mean is around this one. Okay. Oh, sorry, this is not the mean for this one. This is the mean for, okay. This is the mean for this value. Okay. So this one, this x value that we have minus the mean that we have, this one, is negative 61. So we have this number, okay? And also we need to calculate all of this one. This 278 minus the mean, and so on. We got this number, all of this one. And also you need to calculate this one for the revenue value. So this revenue number minus their total average. Okay, we have all of this one. This is the value. Okay, so if we already have this one, based on the formula, we already have this number, right? We already have this number. We have already this number. I'm using Excel because if you are using manually, it takes quite a lot of time. And you need to multiply this one, multiple this number. Okay, so I just multiply this to this one. So I get the number. I get the number of this one. You can see. After we got all of this one, we sum of this one. You can see the symbol here, the sigma symbol. We sum all of this calculation. After we sum all of the calculation, then we divide it by n minus 1. We divide it by n minus 1. N is the sample that you have. So all of this, after I sum all of this one, we have this number. Okay. And the total we have around 30 sample. So 30 minus 1 would be 29. So this number divided by the 29. So this one, yes. This one divided by 29, we have this covariance. So covariance is 3115. So this is a positive. So this number means nothing. This number does not explain the strength of your correlation. It's just positive. Positive, so there are correlation here. There are correlation. So it's good. You have correlation, right? So you might think why you are doing this. So if you know they have the positive value, they are positive correlation, so what? So next I will give you an example. So you will learn about the linear regression not today, maybe in this next week. But I will give you an example why we need to know about this thing. If they have a positive correlation, so what? So I will create this one. Okay, I will create the scatter chart from the value and revenue. Okay. So based on this scatter chart, you can see we have the data here. This is the data of this one. Okay. So if x is 300, then 306, then we have y is 100. So around here. So if we have x is 400, then we have y is around this one, right? So this dot is all of the point of this point of this Chicago, of this Charlotte, of this Boston is on this dot. So you know the data is quite good. You can easily see the pattern here. So it's not spreading a lot, right? Okay. Next is to create the linear regression. For this linear regression, you will learn in the next following weeks. But yeah, we can easily calculate the linear regression in this Excel. You can see I choose this linear. Okay, and I want to know the R square, the equation, and also the R square. R is the correlation. You will know after this one. After this one, you will know about the correlation. So this R square indicate that it's very close to 1. 1 is the maximum. 1 is the perfect correlation. So this very close to 1. So this indicate that they have a perfect correlation. So this covariance indicates nothing about the strength of the correlation. But in the next slide, we will learn about the R. So don't worry, we will learn about the R. So about this linear regression, we will learn about in the next following weeks. So you have this number. This is also to predict the value that you might have. For example, let's say you are this one, you are correlate. So you think that if I increase my value by, let's say I'm increasing value by hiring a more talented athlete, it will give us a more sponsor, right? Okay, so I want to increase my value, my team value. I want to increase my team value into 350. So how big is the revenue that I will get if I increase my value to 350? We can calculate, we can predict by using this formula, because the formula is generated by this data that we have. Okay, so we can calculate. So let's say we have y is this one, the revenue. So how big is the revenue? So we already have this formula, so we can just calculate. So we have this formula, 0.3317 multiplied by the value that we have. So the value will be 350. So I want to increase this one to 170 to 360. So we can, 350. So we can write this 350. Okay, plus this 4.4693. Okay, so we can calculate. Okay, so by increasing your value into 350, then you are predictable will have an increased revenue to 120. So this is the prediction by this formula, the calculation. It could be wrong, it could be right, but somehow you have the prediction based on the data that you have. Okay, so this is the one of the example why you need to calculate this one. Okay, so next we'll calculate the R. So you already know about the correlation, how to calculate this covariance. It's quite good, right? It's quite interesting, you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the next is continue this one. Continue. Okay, so the covariance only see about the positive, negative, or equal to 0. So if positive, they move in the same direction. Negative move in the opposite direction, and equal to 0 is independent. Same direction or positive correlations mean if x increase, then y will increase. Okay, same direction, positive correlation, and opposite direction if this covariance below than 0, negative. So if x increase, then y will decrease. As simple as that one. So if 0, there are no correlation between x and y, no correlation. So this is the flow of this covariance. So it's not possible to determine the strength, the relative strength. You know, you have the 3000 number of the covariance, so it means nothing. So you need to calculate, compare to the standard deviation to know the strength. So the formula will be like this one. Okay, so you already have the formula for the standard deviation, but in this case we need also to calculate the standard deviation for the x variable and for the y variable. Okay, you know this is the formula for the standard deviation, it's the same, no changing, and this is the formula for the covariance. So after you have this covariance, you divide it by this standard deviation of both of the variable. So standard deviation for variable x multiplied by standard deviation for the variable y, then you get this. Okay, so you can calculate the r. You can calculate the r. So if the r is 1, it is perfect. So you can see, this is a coefficient of correlation. We call it the coefficient of correlation, the r, coefficient of correlation. So the maximum number for this r is 1. Okay, this is r is referred for the sample coefficient of correlation. For the population, they have different symbol, but it is still the same. Okay. Okay, so you have this criteria for this one. So it's always the range between -1 and 1. So 1 is the perfect correlation that you have. 0, no correlation or weak linear relationship. Okay. So if they have negative, it's negative linear relationship. Negative means also the same. If x increase, then y will decrease. So they have a negative linear relationship. Okay. This is the example of the graph. As you can see in my Excel file, I have this one. So this is positive. Positive, and this graph is near 45 degrees. So they have r square more thanly increase to 1. Okay. So in this case, we have this type of diagram. So if we, okay. So if we have this r -1, the shape will be like this. The relationship is on the opposite. So if we have high y in this case, then the x will be lower. And the otherwise, if we have a high x number, the y will be lower. So it is negative correlation. In this case, it's almost perfect because the data that we have is not spreading a lot. So that's why we need to divide by the standard deviation to know how far the data from the mean, means how far the data is. How far the data from this line. How far the data. You can see the data is quite spreading a lot. Then the R will be -1.6. So it's still, they still have good correlation, but because the data is spreading, then the correlation is quite far from 1. So you get the 0.6. So if you see this one, the data is more spreading out. So the R will be much smaller. It's near to 0. So we have this 0.3 because of this data that spread a lot. Okay, so if the data is good like this one, they have a good pattern, then the R will be close to 1 or 1. So to get 1 is it's not impossible, but yeah, it's rare. Okay, if the data is like this one, there are no correlation. So if the x is huge, is big, then the y is still the same. If x is low or maybe 0, the y is still the same. There are no correlation. Okay. Okay, this is how we create you will learn this in our practicum. So the practicum is quite simple. It's already integrated with this tool pack. So you can just choose data analysis. You can drag and drop the input. Then you will get this R score or the correlation. As you can see, you have this one. You have this test 1 score, test 2 score. You have this data. You have around 10 data for each variable. You can calculate this one, and you can see the correlation. You have this 0.3 is quite good correlation. Then this is the data that you have. So the data is 0.7. So there are relatively strong positive linear relationship between test score 1 and test score 2. Okay, so students who have high score in the first test, they tend to have the high score in the second test. You can see in this data. If we create a line here, so let's yes, you can see the line here. You can see the data is quite spreading from the line. So that's why we get this number. Okay. Okay, so this is the last. So we have the pitfall in the numerical descriptive measure. So data analysis is always objective. What is subjective is your interpretation. So data interpretation is always subjective. Should be done in fair, neutral, and clean manner. Okay. And also we have this ethical consideration when we are doing statistical analysis. So you should document both of the good and bad result, because somehow if you get this bad result, you don't want to document this statistical analysis. So you need to be fair. Yes, fair, objective, and in a neutral manner. So that's why if you get the bad result, then what to do next? Then you must search for the outliers. So if you found the outliers, then you need to calculate the z-score. So to take out, so you have the reason, you have the bad result, and you have the reason to take out the outliers. Okay. This one should not use inappropriate summary measure to distort the fact. So you should present the data as it is, because the data is the fact about the world. Okay. So this is our chapter summary. It's quite simple, right? You learn about the central tendency, median, mean, mode. You describe the measure of variation. You illustrate the shape of distribution. You got the box plot and so on. Okay.